All right, well, welcome everyone to the Pandemic Survival Guide for Residential Contractors. This is a second in a series of webinars that we're going to be holding every Friday at this time. Thank you all for joining us. Our intent here is to keep it to 30 minutes because we know that all of you are super busy. And I don't know about you, but I'm starting to get webinared out, and I'm not into those hour and a half long webinars. So let's get started. Let me introduce myself first. My name is Ed Earl. I am located in San Diego, California. I, for the last 20 years, have run a construction project management company working as an owner's rep. So I consult homeowners that are building custom estates or doing high-end remodels. I also have an MBA from Stanford, and so I have a business background as well. Let's turn it over to Paul. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Paul Sandeman. My master's is from Cal Poly, so it's not as impressive in education. I've been doing this for 35 years or better, all with residential contractors between 2 million and 100 million. So I've got, literally thousands and thousands of hours experience. I have never experienced anything like this before. It's, a new thing. It's sort of exciting. And so we're here to help, and go ahead, Ed. And I don't think David's on because he's had technical difficulty in Denver, as far as I know.
I'm just sending him a text, right? So, okay. So I'm going to give you a little background on David Berger. He is a former remodeler. He calls himself a recovering remodeler. For 20 plus years, he was a remodeler in the DC area. He now lives in Colorado. He is the author of the book, Managing the Emotional Homeowner, which, if any of you have seen any of my presentations, I read that book like 10 years ago. And as an owner's rep, I was like, oh my God, this guy has got it down. So anyway, that's the three of us. We've included our phone numbers and our emails on here because we really want to encourage you to reach out to us and contact us at any time. I'm going to go through how to apply for these loans, which I've personally done this week, but it's a very confusing process that changes by the day, if not by the hour. So this is the most up-to-date information for right now, but please, if anything that you hear, you have questions, whoever is presenting that section, just feel free to send us an email or give us a call. We are full-time business coaches right now. We're talking to our 50 clients all over the nation, and we're always happy to help in any way we can, especially under this stressful time. So,
and I've cleared out the hour after this. So if anybody wants to call us, I'm available for an hour and a half after this is over.
Great, that's awesome. I'm actually, to tell you what I'm going to be doing for the hour afterwards, I'm actually taking a virtual campus tour with my high school senior, who is now faced with the prospect of applying and accepting to a college campus that he's never ever visited. So, interesting times. All right, so again, that's the purpose of this webinar here, to give you real-time updates, best advice that we can. Any questions during the podcast, please call or email us at any time. All right, well, let's start with this update, which is, I don't know where all of you, gosh, we're up to over 125 people so far, what state that you're in, but this is the current state of affairs for construction in the US. This is a website, I've got the link down there at the bottom, that the NAHB has been putting out. I've been monitoring it for the last week and a half. You can see back on March 24th, much of the country was still gray. That's where there are no statewide orders at all. You can see as of this morning now, we're down to 10 states. Only 10 states do not have any restrictions on construction or businesses. So the green states are those that have a restriction. However, construction is exempt because they're classifying residential construction as an essential industry. And so if you're working in one of those green states, you're allowed to continue to work. If you're living in one of the red states, one of the 5 red states, they now have restricted and eliminated construction. I know there's also certain municipalities as well that have done that. San Francisco two days ago took residential construction off of the essential industries list. And now it's very restricted. Basically, it's only low-income housing and essential infrastructure construction that's allowed to continue in the 8 or 9 counties in the Bay Area. So that's, again, the website there. You might want to monitor that, and you can keep up to date on what's going on in your state. Okay, the main purpose of this call today is to talk about this CARES Act, right? We all heard about this giant stimulus program that our government enacted last week, but I think it's hard to really comprehend how big it is. $2.1 trillion. To put that into perspective, that's equal to 9% of the US's annual gross domestic product. This is a huge, huge amount of money. It's the largest fiscal stimulus program in US history. All right, we all know that our businesses as residential contractors is threatened. We want to do whatever we can to try to get some of this aid. So I've spent the last week studying all of this, staying up to date as much as I can, getting inputs from all of our various clients. And here's what I've identified. There's going to be 4 of these programs that could benefit either us as residential contractors or our employees as well. The first is the COVID-19 Economic Injury Disaster Loan. That's $350 billion that is going to be administered through the SBA loans. And right now, they're letting you do a $10,000 online advance. You can apply online. It takes about 10 minutes. I did it on Tuesday, and I'm going to walk you through the steps here in just a minute. The second program is the Paycheck Protection Program. This is another $350 billion program to help small businesses. This one is tied to the amount of money you can borrow is tied to your monthly payroll. So you're allowed to borrow 2.5 times the borrower's average monthly payroll, okay? Now, I've seen so much misinformation about this program and the other programs. People are confusing these 2 programs. There was a co-construct a program yesterday that talked about this economic injury disaster grant as opposed to a loan. I can't find anything about that. But all of these it's very confusing. I got an email from an attorney that went out to 50,000 people. He said that you could borrow 2.5 times your annual payroll, and that's just not right. It's 2.5 times your monthly payroll. Here's the catch.
Ed, speaking in a moment, up to the minute, I just got my thing from Wells Fargo that says, oh, now you can go online, check immediately to apply. That was 4 minutes ago.
All right, awesome. That's terrific. I'm going to show you how to do it. I actually just applied a couple of hours ago myself. So here's the key thing about this. Yes, it's a loan, but it will be forgiven if there's no reduction in the number of employees during the following 8 weeks after you get the loan. So as long as you don't lay anyone off or reduce their wages by more than 25% for your entire company, this is free money, folks. This
right.
will be forgiven.
And this is a comment to all this. They have all subcontractors. What you don't want to do is call your subcontractors next Friday and have them say, oh, I just laid everybody off last week because I didn't know what was going on. Right. Now they're not eligible.
Right.
So this is like current today information. You got to get to your subcontractors. Don't lay anybody off if you want to apply for this loan. And a lot of people don't have a clue.
Right. Exactly. All right. The next one is this direct payments to workers and families. This is, as my son likes to say, free money from Trump. So this is a $300 billion. Adults will get $1,200. You get $500 for every kid. But here's the hitch. If you make over $75,000 as an individual or $150,000 for married couples filed jointly, you don't get that money. It's a reduced amount up to $100,000 for individuals, $200,000 for couples. Also, some people think that it's your salary or your wages. My understanding is that it's your adjusted gross income, your AGI, which includes not only your salaries, but any investment income, interest income, business income. And so for many of us, that's not going to apply because if you're making over $150,000, you will not qualify for that. The last one is unemployment benefits, which is they have $200 billion in unemployment. They're going to extend that for $600 a week for up to 4 months. But again, as Paul pointed out, if you want to do the Paycheck Protection Program, which is basically free money, then you don't want to be laying your employees off, and so they're not going to be needing that unemployment benefits. So the two loans I want to go through here, and I'm going to literally walk you through step by step how to apply for these loans, is the COVID-19 Economic Injury Disaster Loan and the Paycheck Protection Program. So let's start with the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. This was actually implemented last week. We had some of our clients actually try to fill this out last week. They got an email, they filled it all out, they sent it in by email. Some other people compiled a bunch of paperwork and mailed it off to some empty office in Washington, D.C. But as of this week, they now have an online application. And this is where you go to www.sba.gov. You'll see our friend, the coronavirus, there on the front page. And you just click on that button where it says Learn More. That will take you to this page where they explain all of the various small business loan resources, including the Paycheck Protection Program. But what you want to do is scroll down where it says Economic Injury and Disaster Loans and click where I have that little red arrow. All right. That will then take.
Now, Ed, I have a question.
Yes.
Quick question for you. Can you apply for both of them or one before the other? There's some confusion on that. Could you maybe elaborate a little bit?
Correct. That's a great question, Paul. I have seen different things. There was one thing from an attorney that said that if you had applied for one, you couldn't apply for the other. I've applied for both. So in my payroll protection plan this morning, it said, had you applied for any other loans? I put no because I didn't apply for another payroll protection plan ad. Look, this stuff is changing by the day, by the minute. I think my recommendation is to apply for both, and then let's see what happens. So this is the first.
There's also a quick comment. I think people should apply for this loan even if they may not use it, because I think now this is my own opinion, I think there's a possibility that $10,000 are going to drop in your checking account in the next couple of weeks. That may be forgiven. If you don't have it, you can't have it forgiven. Right? Exactly.
So this is the Economic Injury Disaster Loan application. You'll see there's 5 steps here. There's actually only 3 pages to the application, but it's pretty simple. So I'm going to just walk you through it. Now we have, I've made a copy of these slides. So if you want to contact us afterwards, we'd be happy to send these to you so that you can use them. Paul even has an idea of how you can share that with some people from a marketing standpoint.
My goodness, David just showed up.
Hey!
Hello, Mr. David.
Welcome, David. All right.
Hey, you figured it out. Okay.
He's not saying anything yet, though. He's still working on his audio.
Okay.
Chirp in when you're ready.
Okay.
Okay, so this is the first page. You just go and the eligibility is, are you a small business with less than 500 employees? Are you, do you have an ESOP? Just a whole bunch of basic questions that are pretty easy to take care of. That takes you then to the second page where you fill out your business information. Now, this is the only page where you really have to put any financial information in. So what you put at the top is your legal name, your business legal name, your trade name. Again, remember that if you're incorporated or you're an LLC, you're filing on behalf of your legal name and your legal entity. So don't use your personal social security number. Use your employer ID number that you have from either your S Corp, your C Corp, or your LLC. All right. Once you fill out those 4 fields at the top, if you check if you're a franchise or a nonprofit, which is probably none of us here, these are the only 2 financial questions you're going to have to answer on this application. The first is, what was your gross revenue for the 12 months prior to the date of disaster, which they are determining as January 31st of 2020, for those of you that wondered when the coronavirus disaster started. Now, I don't know about you, but for me, I don't have a quick way to be able to get the 12 months ending January 31st. So I just used my 2019 financials. I used January of 2019 through December of 2019. Again, for me, it's not going to change that much. I don't think anyone's going to be verifying this. It's mainly just to confirm that the size of your business. All right. So that's the first question. The second one is your cost of goods sold for those 12 months. Now, as a contractor, don't just put your cost of goods sold like you were doing a project job costing. All right. That's a little different. And this cost of goods sold include all of your G&A expenses, your overhead, your your sparklets water in your office, all of those kinds of things. Now, we do have a client that knows a connection with a local SBA lender, and the one advice that they gave was make sure your income is more than your expenses. They don't want to loan money to a company that's losing money. So just make sure that you have more income than expenses shown on there. All right. Then there's a few other questions like, are you a faith-based entity? Are you a nonprofit? Which I would hope that probably none of us on this call are. And then we move on to the third step. Now, this is one tricky thing I learned, which I want to point out to you. At the top, it says, is your business owned by a business entity? I didn't answer that. I just started filling out all of this information at the bottom. And when I hit submit to go to the next page, it wouldn't let me progress. So answer that question first at the top. Is your business owned by a business entity? That means, is your business, general contractors, owned by Joe's Business Inc., right? So you want to put in whatever your incorporated or LLC information is, not the DBA that you're operating your company under. All right, once you do that, then you go to the third page where it basically asking you the same questions. Have you ever been convicted of a felony? Do you have any previous loans outstanding with the SBA that you haven't approved? And then if you had someone help you fill out the form, this is where they would fill this out. Now, this is where it gets interesting. On this fourth section at the bottom, you get to this. Would you like to be considered for an advance of up to $10,000? You check yes. You enter your bank name, your account number, and your routing number. And that's it. And you
Now, rumor has it that within 3 to 4 weeks, this is, as of today, and they may change it, that they are going to actually, it's the easiest way for them to get rid of, what 100 billion or what are they going to do, and just fund all these people directly. Right. Now, this might be a loan. We're not sure. And it would be like a 3 3.75% interest. And they might forgive it. Nobody knows. But I would certainly apply for it, because if you don't get it, you can't get it forgiven.
Right. All right. And then once you hit next, then it'll bring you to this page. This is where you're basically just a summary of all of your application. It gives you a chance to review it all. Print out a copy. Absolutely print out a copy at this point. And then hit submit. And then you will get this message right here. Your application has been submitted. You'll have an application number. It says you will be notified through the email address, and confirm that. Write down that number. Better yet, print out this page. Keep it with your printed out application, and then we'll keep you posted. I submitted this on Tuesday. I did not receive a confirmation in the email. I know 2 or 3 of our clients who have already submitted. No one else has received an email confirmation. But you've got your application submittal number. Look, everyone is overloaded with this right now. So I think the fact that we haven't heard anything yet back from an email doesn't mean it wasn't done correctly. It's just that they've been overloaded. All right. So that's the COVID-19 Economic Injury Disaster Loan. I would recommend every one of you, after you get off this webinar, get on your computers. It'll take you 10 minutes. All you need to know is your 12-month income and your 12-month cost of goods, and that's all you need, as well as your bank number and your checking account number and your bank routing, which you can get off your checks, and then submit it. Okay, let's talk.
They can include, and on that one really quickly, you can include, like, say you did $1 million, and that includes your subcontractors, everything else. So let's say you've got 900,000 and maybe 100,000 profit. Make sure that it's profitable, or they're going to kick it out. But this is just a guess on your part, and they're not going to check it. But make it sound reasonable. So if you did $1 million, your 900,000 expenses, you got 100,000 profit.
Okay, let me quickly go through the Paycheck Protection Program. So this is another $349 billion to help out small businesses. If you've got less than 500 employees, you're considered a small business. I got to think that's everyone on this call. You can borrow up to 2.5 times your average monthly payroll cost. All right. When I applied this morning, I had no option. I put in my monthly payroll cost, and it told me exactly what you can borrow. So don't worry about, and I didn't need to submit any 941s or payroll forms. You don't need any of that. It says it's limited to 100,000 of annual salary for an individual employee. So you should make that adjustment. If you have anyone that you're paying over 100,000, reduce them to 100,000 before you determine what your average monthly payroll cost is.
Right.
The maximum.
And Ed, I have some quick information. We talked to a guy in New York this morning, and he has a friend who's a banker, and he has had, by this morning in his small bank, 15,000 people apply for this.
Yeah.
This morning at his bank.
Wow.
So he said his friend is a banker, and he said, I'll put you at the head of the list because they're going to run out of money.
Wow. Yeah. This is going to go fast. Because again, the maximum loan is 10 million. So you can imagine for these quote unquote small companies that have 450 employees, they're going to hit that $10 million limit, and this money is going to go fast. So the interest rate is 0.5%, but that really doesn't matter because these loans will be forgiven as long as you apply the expenses for the first 8 weeks, which you can use not only for your payroll costs, but for mortgage interest and lease payments and utility payments. And the catch is that the loan is forgiven as long as there's no reduction in the number of employees that you have on your payroll, or that there's not more than a 25% reduction in the wages paid during those first 8 weeks after the loan. All right.
And to make this clear, this doesn't apply to W-2. It's only W-2 employees. 1099 employees do not count.
Not yet, right? And this is straight off of the Treasury website this morning. It says starting April 3rd, that's today, small businesses and sole proprietors can apply. Starting April 10th, independent contractors and self-employed individuals can apply. But that's a week from today.
But you can't include if you're an employer like myself and you have a lot of people that are on W-2s, that they can all apply, including yourself if you're on W-2. But if you have people that are on 1099s, they don't count, or subcontractors don't count.
Right. So this is on the Treasury website. It says how to apply. You apply through your existing SBA lenders. Here's what the latest of what we've seen. All right, this came in last night. Banks warn of utter chaos in new small business lending program. This was all supposed to go live this morning. I started seeing the news reports coming in last night saying that they were not ready. This second quote is actually from one of our clients that banks with Chase. Chase said they were most likely not going to be able to start accepting applications on Friday. Here's where it stands as of 11:26 Pacific time on Friday, April 3rd. The no's so far is Chase Bank, Wells Fargo, City National Bank. They are not yet doing the program. The only bank that I know of that is Bank of America. And that was confirmed in this Forbes article that I just saw as of 9 a.m. Eastern time this morning. Bank of America became the first major bank to open its online portal. Well, guess who I bank with, folks? Bank of America. So I actually have already submitted the Paycheck Protection Program.
Well, don't forget to explain the catch. Not anybody can just apply for this loan, right? You have to have a business relationship.
Right. So that's on this slide here. All right. So the way Bank of America is doing it, and I've got to think that all lenders are going to do this, is applications are made online only through your existing bank. Now, in order to access your application, you're going to need 3 things. You need to have a small business checking account opened no later than February 15th. Here's the other catch. You also have to have a small business lending relationship with your bank. So you either have to have a business loan with them, or if you have a credit card, you're good. But if you don't, I have another bank where I don't have a credit card, and I'll show you what I got on that, but it doesn't work. The third is you have to have an online banking account set up with your username and password. And once all of that is set up and once your bank is activated, you should receive an email from your bank with a link to the application site. So at 6:45 this morning, I got an email from Bank of America, and I clicked on it, and it took me to this page. And it said, we're here, we're ready to go, apply now. So I first went in and filled out one where I don't have a credit card, and I got this message. And it said, based on our records, your account doesn't qualify. So there's no one to talk to. There's no way to question this. If you don't have it set up in the system, you're out of luck. But if you do have an existing, and it has to be a credit card, not a debit card, because a debit card is not considered a loan instrument. But if you have a credit card or a business loan and you have everything set up, then with Bank of America, this is what I got. So you're applying for a Paycheck Protection Program loan. Let's get started. I just had to fill out the average monthly payroll down there. So I just put in 20,000 to show you guys an even number. It automatically put in the 50,000 down there. If you can see that, let me zoom up on that. All right. So that I could not fill that out. All you can do is input your average monthly payroll. It doesn't ask for verification. It doesn't say show us a 940 to support that. It just says enter your average monthly payroll. Boom, here's your requested loan amount, and that's it. And you're on to the next page. On the next page, you list the number of people that are supported by your company, which is interesting. They're not calling it employees. And then you check all that apply. So if you're going to use this loan for payroll, for rent, for utilities, or other, just check whatever you're going to use it for. And then down here, there's a drop-down menu that's already linked to all of your accounts that you have with the bank. And you can just select which account that you want the money sent to. You hit continue, you go to the next page. Here it auto-populates and it fills in whatever information that you have based on your login and your password for your online banking account. So for me, it had my business account and my address and everything filled out. And then you just check even have my phone number, and you just check whether your physical address is the same. Then you go to the next page. Again, this one was auto-populated as well. It had my federal tax ID number, and I just inputted the country and the legal entity and hit continue. And then I moved to the next page. Here I had to answer a couple of questions just to make sure that you haven't been suspended, that you haven't been defaulted on any SBA loans, the basic questions, that you haven't been convicted of a felony. Then you go to the next page, you fill out your ownership information, which is your personal name, your job title, your date of birth, your phone number, and your email. You hit continue, and there's a few representations here that you've read all the statements, you comply, that all SBA loan proceeds will be used only for business relationships. You hit continue. Here's some required certifications. The funds will be used to retain workers, documentation, the loan forgiveness, blah, blah, blah. You check all those boxes, and boom, your application has been submitted. Thank you. Your digital application for the Payroll Protection Program has been submitted. What happens next? We will process your application as soon as possible. We'll contact you with next steps and collect any required documents. Our call centers and financial centers don't have access to this information. Please do not call, email, chat, or go into a financial center. So that's it. As of this morning, 2 hours after the program went live, I submitted mine. So I will keep you posted on future webinars. Next week, we'll let you know if I've got money in my account yet and where we are. But as of right now, that's the steps that you will take with the Paycheck Protection Program. Paul's just told you that it sounds like Wells Fargo's just gone live. My guess is that Chase should be going live later today, and I would stay on this today. I would be checking your emails and constantly checking to get on your website, log in with your business account, and try to do this today, because this money is going to go.
Question, Ed, what about the other form where you have to fill out that, the other, like, that comes through the SBA website?
Yes, so the one that came through the SBA website, the form that I showed on our group coaching call on Wednesday, that was basically the same form that I just walked you through on these online steps. So if you want, you can go through, if you were on our group coaching call on Wednesday, or if you want to go back and look at the recording, but it's really not necessary, because everything that was on that application is on these same online steps. And there's really—
So are they going to have to, like, apply if they're not a member of Wells Fargo or Chase or Bank of America, and they want to take it to the local bank? Do they have to fill out that form and then take that form to their bank?
I don't know. That's a great question, Paul. I called my local credit union yesterday. They didn't know anything about it. I started, it says you can go onto the SBA website and find your local lenders. I went in there and got a directory. I contacted 3 other banks They all had disconnected numbers. I realized that the SBA directory was dated July of 2016. There's a lot of outdated, crazy information. So,
Well,
yeah,
the guy we talked to in New York said he filled out one that, and he took it in. Well, he had to take it in his bank this morning.
yeah,
And he's going to be, his banker says his buddy's going to make him first in line of the 15,000 people that applied, because he's a big builder and borrows a lot of money from the bank.
right.
But there was a form he had to fill out, and he had to get, it was more complicated than the one we're talking about from these banks.
Interesting.
But you can download that form and go into your bank. That's, if you have a small bank, that's another option. I got a guy in Dallas doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So
right.
if you have a personal banker, you can call your personal banker, you get a hold of them, download the form, and you can walk in today sometime, and maybe they'll put you at the front of the line. Depends on how we know your banker.
Right.
Well, you're saying, Paul, that relationship is everything, correct?
Right.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, so that's the loan application program. I know we're getting close to our 30 minutes, but Paul has a couple of things he wants to talk to you about from a marketing standpoint, and then David has some really good things, a few extra points. So we're going to run a little over our 30 minutes here, but we'll try to keep it as quickly as we can. And I'm going to turn it over to Paul now for some marketing advice.
Okay. So I would say, the difference between marketing and sales. Marketing is finding people that need your help, and sales is getting them to commit to that help, right? So in any adverse situation, there's an opportunity. The question is, where's the opportunity here? And I feel, marketing builds relationships, and you just have an opportunity to build the relationships with architects, trade partners, and people like that. Now, I've been doing this for 30 years, and I've never found a better way for residential contractors to get business than knowing architects well. And the challenge has always been, how do I get them to take my call? How do I get them interested in me? And it's been very difficult to promote this relationship. Well, we have ways of doing it, but there's a real opportunity here. Because I think you can call your local architects and you can say, hey, have you got the loan yet? They'll go, what loan? Hey, what are you talking about? Well, you have an opportunity to have a discussion with the architects in your community about how to get the money, because everybody wants to know how to get the money, and certainly the sooner you get in, the better. So I feel it's an opportunity here for you to call architects in your market and designers and get to know them better. Now, unfortunately, this is different for every contractor. If you have, if you're doing 15 million and 50 architects, or you're doing $1 million, 3 architects, it's a different problem, a different situation. So I'm making myself available. There's no charge. If you want to give me a call, and then the number's listed right there, take it down. I'll be happy to work with you and an individual program, because it really depends on your market. I've been doing this for like 35 years with the last 10 marketing architects. But the example would be, if you're, a small contractor and you've got, 10, 15 architects, the question is, who do you know well enough to call and say, hey, did you get the money, or what's going on? And they're going to have a conversation with you. And there's a fine line between knowing them well enough to ask those questions. But once you get in conversation with them, it's a great opportunity to build that conversation. I'm actually, on an individual basis, I'm coming up with a program, what to email them, what to follow up. I think a Zoom call is a good idea. So what slides you go through in the Zoom call, we're going to supply those. So you can actually start using this as a marketing tool for architects, designers. So I think it's a good idea. It's very timely, and it needs to be done right away. As far as your subcontractors, I said earlier with Ed, I would call those guys and say, look at, don't at least watch a webinar or whatever we just given, to make sure they don't eliminate themselves from the possibility of getting a payroll for 8 weeks taken care of by the government. So again, it's an individual program, but I do believe right now there's an opportunity to get a hold of people, because in a crisis, people are more open to these relationships. Then after that, we can talk about how the digital transformation is affecting the way you build and a bunch of other stuff. But again, it's all about enhancing that relationship with key architects that matter in your community. So give me a call, phone number's there, first come, first serve, and I'll get to you, and I will help you design a program for your specific situation.
All right. Well, thank you, Paul. Let's turn this over now to David, and David's going to give you some advice on how to approach all this uncertainty.
Yeah, so I'm a former building contractor, and I was a late arrival because I had a technical issue. I couldn't get online, and all I can tell you is when I was remodeling, this is no different, all right? When I was remodeling, I would approach each week, lining up my priorities, arranging the work that had to be done, what employees had to be where, what subcontractors had to be on location, did they understand what had to be finished, what materials had to be on site. I laid out the plan. Here's part two. It never went according to plan. And you know this if you're in this industry. And there's a certain nimbleness, or there's a certain adaptability that is part of what we do in this industry, that every week we reschedule, we remake, we redo our plans. And the only reason I'm bringing this up is you're wired for some of what's going on right now. There's a lot of fear, there's a lot of uncertainty, and if you look out a month or 2 months, we don't know. So here's my recommendation. We're just dealing with another crisis here. Now, this is a bigger crisis than something that happens on site, but my recommendation is this. Basically, on Monday, we've been reviewing these loans, how to apply for them, how to work with them. So on Monday, think about what you can do next week. What can you manage? What can you originate? What can you communicate to employees? What are you working on to keep people working? How are you demonstrating that we are moving forward? What can you communicate to your existing customers, to potential clients? In the absence of information, there's fear. This is where we can lead. So every Friday when we do this, our whole focus is to say, how can we take a leadership role? Let's begin to demonstrate that we are moving through this, and this will end. Like every other crisis, it will end, and we need to lead for all the people we're working with. They look forward to that kind of leadership, that direction. So let's look at this as an opportunity. Let's deal with it. But again, 1 week at a time. What can you do next week to break this into a bite-sized piece, to create an action list, action items that you can complete moving forward 1 week at a time? Ed, back to you.
All right, thanks. Just to finish up here, we're going to include this slide, which was what we talked about last week, but it's just as relevant this week as well. And this is our general advice, which is be informed, stay connected, and keep positive. You know, the situations are changing all the time. It's important for you to be informed, but that doesn't mean binge watching the news. That's just an anxiety-producing exercise. Be selective on your information. With the internet, you can find very well researched and documented information. Reach out to us. We're always keeping track of what the most up-to-date and reliable information is. And stay connected with your peers. Stay connected with your people in your peer groups that you have. Stay connected with us. As Paul said, reach out to those in your community. Share this loan information with them. And lastly, keep positive. You know, as David said, we've hit these issues before. We made it through. Many of us went through the previous financial downturns of 2008 or 9/11. We'll make it through this as well. We just all need to work together. All right, so let me just go through a couple of last quick things. We, every Wednesday, are offering a free weekly group coaching session. In this webinar, we're really mainly just trying to give you the latest and best information. But on these weekly group coaching sessions, that's where we can provide you with individual advice and guidance as you're navigating. So that's Wednesdays at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 noon. And you can sign up on our website, which is rcsg.org. And then you go to the business coaching section, or you can follow that link right there. Also, again, we're going to be continuing to do these free weekly webinars every Friday at 11 a.m. Pacific and 2 p.m. Eastern. I know that some of you got on late here. I see there's a question from some of you saying, hey, can you please review this information? We are recording all of these, and we're posting all of them on our Residential Contractor Services Group website under the Resources tab. So as soon as we get this one done, we will post that on the resources page. We have our weekly group coaching session from this week already posted, and our recording from our previous webinar also posted there on the website. If you have any questions, I'm looking right now and I can see that Scott and Shannon and Thomas and James all have questions. If you have questions, we don't have time to answer them right now. We are going to.
Can you put up our contact information?
Yes.
I think the first slide.
So if you have any questions, here is all of our contact information. Please feel free to reach out to any of us on any of the topics that we've covered today. You can call us, you can send us an email. We are happy, we are available, as we are to all of our coaching clients all the time, whenever you need us. If you get our voicemails, we'll do a good effort of getting back to you and responding, as well as to the emails. So please.
And this is all, this is all free, by the way. We're not charging for any of this. So,
I mean, we're really just at this point trying to help as many people as we can. We're committed to this. Between the three of us, we have 95 years of experience in the residential construction industry, and we are committed to helping all of you guys get through this. And that's why we're making all of ourselves available. All right. So I'm sorry we were a little bit over our 30-minute goal there, but we had a little technical difficulties at the beginning, and some really important and up-to-date information. So thank you all for joining us, and we will see you next week.
bye.
So long.